Hi guys, is it Christmas yet? Clearly I got my hair done. Figured I would just get that kind of out of the way and like address the elephant in the room because it's pretty obvious, but if you've been with me from the start, you know that I started my channel with having green hair and I've just really missed it, and I was lucky enough to be able to get a lot of color out of my hair yesterday, or my hairdresser I should say. If you want to know who I go to, I will leave her information down in my description box if you're in Vegas for some reason and you want to get your hair done, because she is amazing. But this is what my hair looks like now. I absolutely love it. Like I said, I miss having green hair so much, and I just thought that it would be perfect for Halloween, for Christmas, for fall, you know, all that. So I'm really excited, and I'm also really excited about today's video because today we are going to be trying out the Sweater Weather palette by Maxup the Makeup. He was actually so sweet to send me this palette, so thank you so much, Max. I can't wait to try this. I've been wanting to try this brand for such a long time, and I don't know what has stopped me from pulling the trigger. You know, sometimes there's just so many things coming out that you just can't buy at all, and I feel like this is one of those brands that's kind of like been my second choice the whole way that I've just never ended up picking up. So today is today, and I am really excited about trying this palette. So here's what the palette looks like. This is the sleeve, so obviously same thing. Also same information on the back. So you really can throw away this, which is nice because I never like to keep the sleeves on any of my palettes. So if you want to see the color story inside of this, it did come with like a plastic slip that I've already thrown away because I had to look at this palette, and it's so beautiful. I love that it has some neutrals for the people who are really into neutrals, but it also has some really nice bright pops of color, especially like the greens up here, obviously, because those are the ones that I'm the most drawn to, as well as like this pink and orange and kind of burgundy. Like, I love the tones in this. They're very fall, and they're still like fun and bright, but you can mute them down with a lot of the other colors in this palette. Also does have a mirror. So today we're going to be testing out this palette. I cannot wait. So let's do some really quick swatches of this palette. This palette does contain 15 shades, 3 of which are shimmers and 12 which are mattes, which I kind of like that because I prefer my mattes over my shimmers. If I had to choose which ones to have more of, I would definitely choose mattes. And this palette retails for $35. As for how this palette swatches, I felt like the shimmers seemed very nice and creamy and foiled, whereas the mattes seemed definitely more on the buildable side. I did have to go in quite a few times with some of these mattes to build them up, so we're just gonna have to see how they perform on the eyes. I mean, that doesn't really mean anything to me, but I know that a lot of people don't love like the super intense pigmented, like in your face right away kind of formula, so I already feel like this might be something that is a little bit easier to work with maybe than say something like Menagerie, which is very much in your face and something that I really enjoy. So I'm very interested in trying this formula. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe off the swatches here, see if we have any staining, which I can't really imagine too many of these shadows will stain, so it definitely doesn't look like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and prime my eyes. I'm going to use my Natasha Denona eyeshadow primer like I always do now, which is so weird for me to say because I've just been using my MAC Paint Pot for such a long time before this, and my Smashbox primer, and so saying like I'm using a new primer just feels kind of weird to me. But this is what we are using, and I don't know if, you know, this is going to become my holy grail, or I don't know what I'm gonna do when I'm done with this primer. I do feel like I want to keep trying new primers and hopefully find one that's a little cheaper that I can keep repurchasing, because I don't know how quickly I'm going to go through this. And since eyeshadow primer is something that I use literally every time I do my makeup, I would rather have something that's on the more affordable side, but I'm willing to pay more for an eyeshadow primer if I'm going to get better results, since eyeshadows is like the one thing that I really love and like to review. So I think it's going to come as no surprise that I do want to try out one of these greens. I don't want to make this into like a green look though, but I do want to try out this tea shade, which is the kind of lime greeny green. I just think that is such a stunning shade, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that into my inner corner. And the reason why I like to do this first, I know I've said this in many videos, but when I use a matte in my inner corner, I like to put down the matte shade first because it's a lot easier to layer a shimmer over a matte than it is to layer a matte over a shimmer. So I want to make sure that I know where the shade is going so that I don't cover up the space with something else, and it just makes it so that I know I have all the space that I need for this color, and I don't accidentally end up overdoing it with something else, and then I don't have any room for this when I'm done. So this might have gotten a little bit out of hand, but it's totally fine. I do want, you know, quite a bit of this, and it's going on very, very nicely. It is definitely a buildable formula though, but it does seem to build quite well, so I'm really happy with this color. I think that is such a beautiful, very bright green. It reminds me a lot of the green in the Zulu palette by Juvia's Place, just in a matte form. Alright, next up I want to take, I think, Flannel, which is kind of this burgundy color down here. It's one of the darkest shades in this palette, especially of the mattes. So I'm going to be putting that in the outer corner of my eye and try to use this as like my deepening shade. And I want to just put this down first because I do know that this kind of color does have a tendency to sometimes get a little bit patchy. So I just want to make sure that it doesn't do that. And that's honestly like such a beautiful shade. Like that is so pretty. Oof, I love that. And I'm actually going to go ahead and pull this from my crease a little bit as well and just sort of meet that up with the green. And then I'll take another shade and use to really blend this out with. And I also don't want to mix this into the green because it is going to make it a little bit muddy if I do that. So I'm just going to make sure that they don't end up touching too much. So one thing to mention is that the palette barely has any kick up at all, and the shadows are tightly pressed into the pan, especially the two shadows that I've used so far, which I know is a good thing for some people. And it's one of those formulas that you definitely need to kind of swirl your brush into to pick up enough pigment to have it be nice and pigmented on the eyes without taking too long to blend it out, if that makes sense. And like I've said in the past, like I definitely prefer the kind of formulas that you don't need to build for a very long period of time, but that's not to say that, you know, those formulas are good. It's just that I like to not spend forever trying to build up my eyeshadow because I'm always looking for maximum pigment, you know what I mean? So I'm also going to go ahead and just take a little bit of this down to my lower lash line, just on the outer corner, so that I'll have an easier time transitioning the shades that I'll be using to blend this out with. Man, I feel like this color is so much prettier on the eyes than it is in the pan. Like, I feel like the pan doesn't do this color any justice. Like, this is such a beautiful, man, if I knew how to describe colors, that'd be great. But it's almost like a plum shade. I really, really like that. So I think to blend this out with, I'm gonna use, what do I want to use? I think I'm gonna use Crisp, which is this sort of pink shade here. I don't know how this is going to show up on the eyes, but we're gonna go ahead and try it. And just as I say that none of these shadows have any kick up, this one definitely has the most kick up out of the ones that I've used so far. Maybe this is a different formula, I don't really know, but let's go ahead and use this to just blend out that previous shade that I put down. And I feel like this is not really going to end up being a fall look at all. This is more so like a summer look. I'm also going to take a little bit of this down to my lower lash line and just blend out the outer corner here. And then I think I might use another shade just on the inner part of my lower lash line just to try another shadow because I can and because I want to. And I will say that this color kind of took away like the depth that I have on the other color because of how bright this is. So I might have to go in with a little bit more of that first shade after to try to bring that back a little bit because I feel like this took over the look. So I feel like one thing I'm missing in all of these fall palettes that I've tried lately is a black. Like I feel like there should be like a very, very dark matte just so you can really make those like smoky, dark fall vibes kind of look, you know? But I'm gonna go back into Flannel and I'm just gonna try to deepen this up a little bit more here because I don't want to lose this shadow. I do really want this to be, you know, very prominent in the look because it's such a beautiful color. And I feel like this color is building very, very nicely. So that's always a good thing when the darkest shade in the palette does build. And I'm just going to go ahead and take a clean fluffy brush now and just really make sure that this is all buffed and blended out. So, I mean, I think this is looking really, really nice. And I think I'm also going to take back what I said about not wanting to use more of these greens because I do want to use Pine here, which is the darkest of the green mattes. And I'm going to pop that just in the inner portion of my lower lash line because I just want to try this one. I always just want to try all of the shades in my first impressions, even if it ends up looking a little bit crazy, but I don't really care. I will say that I feel like this shadow would have performed a little bit better and been more vibrant if I had put down a little bit of eyeshadow primer on my lower lash line, but that could be said with basically any shadow, but I don't feel like this is really doing like this color any justice because it's just It's not sticking to my eye as well as I would like to here, but it is a really, really beautiful tone of green. And I feel like it just goes really nicely with all of the other shades in this palette. Like I love the color story of this. I think he did an amazing job like curating this to work for so many different kinds of people. Like this works for someone like myself who is super into color. It also works very well for someone who likes to do more neutral looks but still likes to experiment with color and have like a pop of color. So I really, really like the color story of this. Let's see, what do I want to do on my lid here? I mean, to be fair, I don't really have a lot of choices. I have a bronze, a gold, and a champagne. So I think I'm gonna start off with the bronze shade and I'm gonna put that in the middle of my lid, and then I'll take the gold on the inner portion of my lid. Don't know if I want to use that champagne shade, but I'm first gonna use cider, which is the bronze. And like I said, I'm just gonna start by placing that in the middle of my lid here and also just blending it into that outer corner shade, as well as sort of blending it into my crease as well to make sure that this is looking just nice and blended everywhere. Now personally, I don't really have any strong feelings on this shadow because I'm not a bronze eyeshadow kind of person, but this seems like it would be a very nice bronze shade. Like, you know, I don't want to judge this and be like, oh, this is a boring shadow, because I don't like bronzes, but I feel like if you are into bronze eyeshadows, I think you would really like this. I do really like the formula on this. I like that it's very easy to pick up on a brush. It goes on the eyes very, very smoothly. It's not crumbly at all. It's just that I am not really a bronzy eyeshadow kind of person. But it is still a very beautiful shadow. So I'm next gonna finish off with Syrup, which is this kind of goldy. Does this have a little bit of green to it? It might have a little bit of a green tint. And I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in the rest of my lid here. Oh, see, that's a beautiful shadow. Yeah, that's more up my alley, that's for sure. Just blending that into the bronze ever so slightly here. And I feel like I've come this far, I might as well use a tiny bit of this champagne shade as well, which is called Frosty. And I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of this just right in my inner corner. I'm barely going to touch my eye here, but I just want a little bit of brightness right in my inner corner. And I'm also going to just build up this green a little bit here because I do feel like this one has faded a little bit. Like I said, this green just doesn't want to really stick to my lower lash line that well. So I would definitely recommend going in with an eyeshadow primer before putting down this color on your lower lash line. But other than that, I mean, it's a really, really beautiful shadow. So I think I'm going to finish off my eyes because this is all I want to do for shadows, and I want to try a new eyeliner. So I bought the gel liner in the shade Best O from Colourpop like such a long time ago. And this is like a dark kind of burgundy shade. So I'm going to use this as my eyeliner. Like my top eyeliner. I'll pop something in my waterline as well. I'm thinking I'll probably do Punch by Colourpop to make this like a very fall kind of look. So I'm gonna do that, put on a lipstick, and then I'll be right back and we can talk a little bit more about this palette. So this is the final look, and I decided to go with a very dark lipstick today, which I don't really do that, but I thought that it would kind of grunge this up and make it a little bit more fall. So this is from Dior. This is a metallic liquid lipstick in the shade Poison Metal. I really like these. I have so many of these and I never use them, and I really want to get more use out of them because I feel like this is the kind of metallic lipstick that's like subtly metallic. I don't know if that's a thing, but I would explain it as that if I could, because it's not like super obnoxious, you know, like it's just kind of subtle. But anyway, let's talk about this palette though, because this palette, I really like this palette. I think it's so cute. I think it's so fun. I mean, packaging though, A+. I think this is beautiful. Also really love that it matches the sleeve because now I can throw that away because I don't need that anymore. Now, as for the formula on this, I really like the formula so far, but I do need to play more with this. I will say that I definitely think that this is the kind of formula that you need to have a tacky base to be able to really get the most pigmentation out of and to really get them to stick to your eyes. Now, the shadow down here actually did build very nicely when I went in the second time and tried to build and layer it up, and it did perform very well. but just from like trying these two greens here, I felt that they were a little bit sheer, but they definitely did build. On my lower lash line though, it did have a little bit of a hard time sticking, and I can see it fading just a little bit here, and I really did have to pack on that color, and the same could be said down here for my lower lash line. So I would definitely recommend having some kind of a tacky base down before you go in with these shadows, and that working darkest to lightest is probably going to be the best idea with these. The shimmer formula is beautiful. I thought they were very easy to work with, but still being very impactful. So I think that this palette is actually quite beautiful, and I'm really excited to have it. I think that this is something that a lot of people would really like, especially, you know, the color story is very wearable, like I said earlier, and I think that's all I got. I think that's all I wanted to say about this. Let me know if any of you guys have bought this palette and what you think of it. Let me know if you plan on getting it. Have you been thinking about getting this palette? Tell me all about it. What do you think of this look? I really like this look. What do you think of my hair? I love it. Anyway, that's gonna be all for today's video. If you want to see some other first impressions that I've done, I'll pop a few up on the screen. And if you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.